signal never appears by accident. It is not a mystical sign falling from the sky, nor a metaphysical moment reserved for the lucky. The signal is always present, but it only comes at one specific point in your life, a point where the ripeness within you becomes deep enough, still enough, spacious enough to touch it. At that moment, you do not need to search. You simply recognize what has always been standing beside you. The signal is the intersection between two layers of reality, the one you are living in and the one you are ready to step into. It does not choose according to your desire, but according to the frequency you truly emit. Not the image you imagine about yourself, not the story you tell yourself, but the real frequency formed from experience, from fractures, from the silent growth in the nights when you face yourself alone. When you feel as if the world suddenly becomes slightly different, when the light in a familiar room changes color in an unexplainable way, when a thin layer of stillness covers everything, even though there is no reason for it to appear, that is not a strange feeling. That is the intersection. A frequency within you is syncing with a layer of understanding you have been moving toward for years without realizing it. This intersection happens very quietly. It creates no sound. It carries no calling. It only opens through a subtle change in the way you perceive things. You do not know why everything becomes clearer without analysis. You do not know why your breath slows down and you feel yourself differently, but you know something has just fallen into its rightful place. This signal appears once in a lifetime, but every time you reach the right frequency, it becomes deeper. It is like an invisible door that opens only when you are still enough to notice it is open. You have walked past it many times without recognizing it because at those times the frequency within you was not stable enough to perceive it. You were busy resisting reality, busy forcing life into the shape you thought it should have, busy wanting everything to follow your expectations. In those phases, you cannot see the signal even when it stands right in front of you. The signal only appears when you step out of the forced rhythm of the ego and fall into the natural rhythm within. It is the moment you no longer try to control every outcome, no longer rush, no longer try to prove anything. Inside you expands a space you never had before. This stillness is not the beautiful peace people often imagine. It is like a space where you feel you no longer belong to the old patterns but do not yet know how to move forward. That space is the condition for the signal to touch you. A person who is not at the right frequency cannot receive the signal no matter how many times it appears. When you are in your old state, your mind filters out everything that could bring you into a new layer of awareness. You do not see the signal not because it does not exist, but because you have not become the version of yourself capable of seeing it. The signal is not for the seeker, the signal is for the ready. When you reach the point where your energy is no longer pulled by fear, by lack, by the obsession with control, but guided by clarity, awareness, and the ability to let go at the right time, the signal not only appears but becomes impossible to ignore. It becomes a vibration your body senses before your mind understands. You feel it before you can explain it. You recognize it through the silence that feels deeper than usual, through the shift in your heartbeat, through the sense that a transition is occurring in the air. This is not an illusion. This is the synchrony between you and a layer of understanding that has been waiting for you for a long time. The signal never goes looking for anyone. It is you who have been moving toward it your entire life without noticing every turn you have taken, every loss that seemed meaningless, every moment you felt lost. All were silent adjustments, guiding you to the exact frequency needed to receive this signal without losing it again. When the signal appears, you no longer feel as if you are searching for something. You feel as if something has been searching for you and has finally found you. This is not the choice of fate, but the compatibility of frequency. You have changed enough to see what you could not see before. And When you see it, the deepest part of you knows this is the moment everything begins to shift. Not because the world changes, but because you have changed enough to perceive a part of reality that others still walk past without noticing. That signal is the confirmation that you have entered a new stage. A stage that does not come from effort, but from the silent maturation of consciousness. And when it arrives, you no longer doubt that you are ready, because the signal only appears when you truly are. The true structure of reality is not found in what your eyes see. It lies in the layer of operation that most people never become still enough to touch. People believe reality is a physical stage where events unfold linearly, where results come from effort, where everything happens through clear cause and effect, but that is only the surface. It is the mask reality wears to fit those who only look with sight, not with awareness. Beneath that mask lies a far more intricate structure, an intelligent network operating on frequency, feedback, and the compatibility of consciousness. You cannot see this architecture when you live from the ego, when you are pulled by anxiety and the need for control. But when there is a moment in your life quiet enough, when you no longer try to understand everything with the old mind, a very small gap opens and you begin to see that reality is not what you thought it was. Reality is not a machine reflecting your actions. It is a living field with intelligence, with the ability to sense your frequency and rearrange everything based on your inner state. Have you ever wondered why there are times you work yourself to exhaustion and nothing changes, yet there are moments you do very little and all the doors open on their own? There are moments when something comes to you so coincidentally, so perfectly timed, so precise that it cannot be called random, as if an invisible hand is coordinating everything. If you have ever experienced such a moment, that is not luck. That is the sign that you touch the hidden architecture of reality. At this layer, things do not come because you force them. They come because you are compatible with them. Reality does not respond to begging, it responds to your true frequency. What is frequency? Not vague energy or poetic phrasing. Frequency is the sum of your level of awareness, your inner maturity, what you have released, what you still hold, and what you have overcome without ever putting into words. When the frequency within you changes, reality changes with it. When you open a new layer of awareness, the hidden architecture of reality immediately adjusts to match the new version of you. And this is the point very few people see. Reality does not change with time. Reality changes with you. This is why two people living in the same world can have two completely different realities. One person constantly meets obstacles because they operate from fear. The other consistently meets opportunity because they operate from openness. The world does not favor anyone, it simply reflects the frequency they emit. Have you noticed that many times you do not meet the right person, the right opportunity, the right sentence, the right book, the right signal, simply because during that phase you were emitting an incompatible frequency? The hidden architecture of reality does not punish you. It protects you. It will not bring you something you are not strong enough to hold. It will not open a door that would lead you to collapse. It will not take you to a layer of awareness your nervous system cannot handle. Reality is always more intelligent than you think. It only waits for you to become spacious enough to receive what you have been asking for. And when you view reality through this structure, everything suddenly becomes clear. You understand why some things never arrive. You understand why some things arrive too quickly. You understand why a door closes right when you think you are about to walk through it. Everything operates on the architecture of frequency. You receive what you are compatible with, not what you desire. In this part, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself something. Has anything in your life ever appeared at the exact moment you stopped clinging to it? A book arriving on the day you were exhausted? A sentence someone said by accident that changed you from within? An opportunity showing up right when you relaxed? A person appearing when you stopped searching? If you have experienced even one moment like that, it is the clearest proof that you have touched the true architecture of reality. Let me know in the comments. Write one thing, just one thing that has ever come to you exactly at the moment you stop forcing things. I ask this not to collect information. I ask because your presence here is truly valuable to people like me who create this kind of content. A person who dares to look deeply within themselves and dares to acknowledge the moment they were guided is someone stepping into a new layer of awareness. Your comment not only tells me you are here, present, awake, but it is also a signal you send into the field that you are ready for the next layer. Comment the thing that has come to you at the moment you stopped holding on. That tells me you are choosing to change starting right now, and also tells me I am not speaking alone. I am grateful for your presence, and when you write it down, you are not just sharing, you are opening a new door for yourself. When you view reality through this architecture, you no longer follow the old path. You do not search for reality ahead. You see it opening from within. Reality is not something you try to understand. Reality is something you become compatible with. And that hidden architecture begins to reveal itself when you become still enough to notice that it has been there all along. You do not step into a new world. You step into a deeper version of the world you are already living in. And only those who dare to look beneath the surface can see it. Everything in reality operates through a form of selection that most people never see. Not a selection of luck, not a selection of personal favoritism, but a selection based on the compatibility of consciousness. Reality does not give you what you want. It gives you exactly what your being has the capacity to hold. Every experience, every person, every opportunity, every door carries its own frequency. That frequency is like an energetic signature. It cannot be mistaken. It cannot be faked. It cannot be forced to accept you. When you are not at the frequency that matches the signature of something, you cannot hold it no matter how hard you try. Not because you are unworthy, not because the universe ignores you, but because you have not yet become the version of yourself capable of carrying it without collapsing under its weight. Many people think they are being rejected. But the truth is that reality is protecting them from a layer of experience they do not yet have the inner capacity to step into. The universe's selection is always more precise than any plan you have ever created. It never places in your hands something that exceeds the load your inner being can withstand. When you view the world from this angle, you understand why there are things that will never belong to you no matter how hard you try. You understand why some people enter your life and then leave, as if they were only allowed to exist in a specific phase. You understand why some opportunities appear and vanish right before your eyes, not because you lacked effort, but because you were at the wrong frequency layer. Reality is not a marketplace of fairness or unfairness. Reality is the awakened system of the field. It does not operate based on your desires. It operates based on your maturity. When you reach a point where your internal awareness has moved beyond old fears, when the fractures in you are no longer signs of weakness, but places where light enters, something begins to change. You start becoming compatible with things you could not see before. People think they need to try harder to achieve what they want, but cosmic selection does not respond to effort, it responds to your openness. When your inner space is cramped with old beliefs, old fears, old habits, any gift that arrives has no space to stay. You only receive what you have space to hold. And That space is not free time, it is the capacity of your awareness. You may have wondered why, given the same opportunity, some people keep it while others lose it. It has nothing to do with luck. It has everything to do with cosmic selection. Reality only allows something to remain with you when your being is strong enough to ensure it does not become a burden. This is why some people meet the right person at the wrong time. Some people receive the right opportunity, but from the wrong layer of awareness. Some people stand before an open door but do not step in because within them there is not enough clarity to recognize that it is the door meant for them. Cosmic selection sees what your mind cannot see. It reads your frequency even when you cannot read yourself. And therefore it gives you what fits your true version, not the version you created to convince others or even yourself. When you develop inner strength, when you begin to live from a deeper layer of awareness, when you no longer act from lack but from inner stability, reality automatically adjusts. Some relationships naturally fall away because they no longer match your new frequency. Some people you once longed for no longer attract you. Some goals you once considered the peak suddenly becomes small compared to your new perspective. When cosmic selection shifts, your life shifts with it. Not because you win or lose, but because you are moving between layers of consciousness. If you observe carefully, you will see your life has always operated this way. The things you kept were not kept because you tried, but because you were compatible. The things you lost were not things the universe took away, but things your being no longer matched. You became the version of yourself for whom those things were no longer natural. Cosmic selection always happens in silence. It does not announce, it does not warn, it simply responds. And it is this silence that causes many people to misunderstand their lives. They think the universe is testing them, but in truth, the universe is evaluating their frequency. They think they are being abandoned, but reality is protecting them from a door they are not ready to walk through. They think they are late, but cosmic selection has no time. It only has compatibility. When you understand this mechanism, you no longer feel anger toward what does not arrive. You no longer feel despair for what is left. You begin to realize that what remains is exactly what you are ready for. And what has not yet arrived is not due to lack of luck, but because you are being prepared to become the person capable of holding it sustainably. Cosmic selection never delivers out of rhythm. When you reach the point where everything within you truly synchronizes, where there is no longer a conflict between what you want and what you have become, you will see reality begin to open naturally. No forcing, no painful effort, no proving, only you being in the right frequency. And when you are at the right frequency, things do not come late, they do not come slowly, they do not come by luck. They arrive at the exact moment you have the capacity not to ruin the gift you have waited so long for. This is the secret of cosmic selection, not because reality chooses people. In truth, you choose the layer of reality you are able to live in, and reality simply responds to that choice. There comes a point in every person's journey when they realize that the more they try to force reality, the heavier and more uncontrollable reality becomes. Every plan pushes back, every effort becomes rigid, every outcome drifts farther away, as if an invisible force is pulling you in the opposite direction. This does not happen because you lack determination or discipline. It happens because you are operating through the mechanism of force, while reality is activated through the mechanism of flow. Force is the state in which you act with the mindset that results must appear immediately. Flow is the state in which you act from clarity, not pulled by fear or pressure. Force keeps you in a constant fight, while flow allows you to become part of the natural stream of operation. When you look at life this way, you realize that every time you use force, you resisting a rhythm larger than the rhythm within you. Force comes from the need to control. It is accompanied by tension, doubt, and fear of losing your sense of agency. It makes you believe that you must push harder for anything to happen. But the harder you push, the more things slip out of their natural position. When you act from force, you can no longer hear the subtle signals of reality. You only hear the echo of your inner fear. Force tells you that if you do not control everything, then everything will fall out of your hands. But flow tells you that if you release in the right place, everything will begin to return to its rightful position. This seems paradoxical until you experience a moment when you truly relax. When you stop fighting the circumstances, you realize that it was actually you who locked yourself into cycles of tension. Flow is not surrender. Flow is the state in which you are still enough to sense the rhythm of reality and merge with it. A person in flow does not do less. They act from a clearer layer. They do not push life. They adjust themselves to fit into the current that is already present. When you begin to step into flow, you notice something important. Events do not drift randomly. They move along very subtle pathways. There are opportunities you cannot see when you force yourself to move faster. There are signals you cannot hear when your mind is noisy. Only when you pause in the right place can you hear the guidance that reality has always been sending you. Force makes you blind. Flow makes you see. When you operate through force, you are always in a state of lack because you believe that if you do not see something, it will be lost. But on a deeper level, lack is not a condition of circumstances, but a condition of awareness. A person in lack always wants to control because they do not trust the natural flow of reality. A person in flow understands that nothing slips away when they stand in the right frequency. When you pause and look back at your life, you will see many moments of flow appear quietly without you noticing. There was a time you consistently put in effort and everything remained stagnant. But at the moment you released excessive control, a door opened on its own. There was a time you tried to find a solution, and the more you searched, the more tangled things became. But when you relaxed to see things from a different angle, the solution appeared unexpectedly. This is not magic. This is the operating system of reality. When you no longer block its current, force breaks the surface of the water, making it impossible for you to see the bottom. The right amount of release smooths the surface again, and at that moment you see clearly what you need. Flow does not require you to change the world. It requires you to change the way you approach the world. A person who forces reality always chases results and always sees results drifting away. A person who steps into flow realizes that results are not something to chase, but something that naturally moves toward them when they stand in the right rhythm. When you experience flow, you no longer want things to come quickly. You want things to come correctly, because you understand that something arriving at the wrong frequency will make you lose yourself more than it will help you gain what you want. The release of flow is not weakness. It is the courage to step back at the right moment, to see wider instead of deeper into a single point. When you step back, you see the currents you were too tense to notice before. You see that life does not need you to fight it. It needs you to be sensitive enough to recognize the natural rhythm of each stage. And this is what few people have the courage to admit. Most of what makes life heavy is not the circumstance, but the unconscious forcing embedded in every action. We want results because we fear being left behind. We want control because we fear reality is not on our side. But when a person steps into flow, they realize reality has always been on their side. They were simply too busy pushing against it to notice. Flow does not make you passive. Flow makes you precise. It helps you know when to stop, when to move, when to stay silent, when to open up. It is the state in which every action you take comes from inner stability, not from momentary reaction. When you live from flow, You realize that the things you thought needed force are actually the things that will come to you naturally when you stand in the right place. You no longer push yourself into races that do not belong to you. You no longer pursue goals just to prove something. You begin to live from clarity rather than being overwhelmed by external expectations. And at that moment, reality begins to work for you. No more resistance, no more noise, no more opposition. Only the current, only the open rhythm, only the doors that move on their own when you are still enough to see how they open. Flow is the silent maturity of someone who knows that control is not power. True power lies in the ability to become one with the natural rhythm of reality. And when you reach this state, you no longer have to push life forward. You only need to walk, and life adjusts itself to your steps. This is the shift where force ends and flow begins. The moment you realize you are never late always arrives in a very quiet way. No announcement, no brilliant moment, no grand sign for you to hold as proof. It comes as an inner knowing, so subtle that if you are not still enough, you will overlook it just like every other time. But once you recognize it, once that truth lights up inside you, the entire way you view your journey changes completely. You begin to see clearly that what you call slow, late, or behind is only a set of labels created by an old layer of awareness. That layer always pushed you to compare, made you panic when you saw others move ahead, made you wonder whether you had lost direction, wasted time, or missed opportunities. But the deeper layer of awareness sees everything through a different logic. It is the logic of inner ripeness. At this layer, you understand that every experience you have gone through is part of the process, shaping you into the version capable of holding what you are waiting for. You are not slow, you are being prepared. You are not falling behind, you are being placed in the right phase. You are not losing opportunities, you are being protected from opportunities that the old version of you could not have endured. This maturity does not arrive loudly. It arrives in the moment you look back at your life and realize that every time you thought you were being left behind, it actually led you to the exact position where you stand today. You may think you have known this for a long time, but knowing with the mind and recognizing with awareness are two completely different things. The recognition point is not a sentence or an idea, it is a vibration, a moment in which you feel your entire life rearrange itself into a logical order that you could not see before. You realize that if you had met a certain opportunity earlier, you would have ruined it. If you had met someone before you matured, you would not have been able to keep them. If a door had opened at a time when your fears had not yet been illuminated, you would have stepped in with panic and caused everything to collapse. The universe never rejects you. It only waits for you to ripen. And this ripeness does not come from trying to understand everything quickly. It comes from going through enough emotional spirals, enough failures, enough moments of losing direction to finally develop the stillness you once did not have. When you are in the old layer of awareness, you think time is the enemy. You believe you must run faster, do more, push harder to make up for what you think you have lost. But reality does not operate by time. It operates by frequency. It does not matter how long it takes. What matters is which layer of awareness you stand in when the door opens. The recognition point is the moment you realize your life has never been late because you were never in the wrong place. You were simply standing in the old version of yourself, a version not deep enough to understand why things had not arrived. When that version falls away and the new one begins to form, you immediately see that everything you once thought was wrong timing was actually right timing. The only difference was that you were not clear enough to recognize it when it happened. This moment does not make you excited. It makes you calm, because when you understand that you were never abandoned, never on the sidelines, never lost, you stop trying to run forward in desperation. You begin to move from peace, and it is this peace that becomes the frequency, allowing everything to come to you at the right rhythm. The truth is that you cannot receive what belongs to you when you have not yet become the person capable of receiving it. That is why the recognition point always arrives after countless cycles you sometimes call suffering, delay, or failure. But in reality, they were only preparation. Every seed needs time beneath the dark soil before rising to the surface. Every being needs moments of collapse before opening into true maturity. You cannot skip your way into the deeper version of yourself, but you can recognize when you have become deep enough to enter that layer. And the recognition point is the moment marking that transition. When you touch this awareness, you will see your life beginning to change, even when nothing outside has moved. Because real change always happens at the layer of awareness before it appears in the physical layer. When your inner world shifts, reality responds immediately. Not later, but immediately. Even if you cannot see the results yet, the field has already begun rearranging the path. And when you stand in this frequency, the things that once refused to appear will begin to find you naturally. The recognition point is the sign that you have entered the phase where the universe can work with you instead of working for your old version. If you feel something in this part touch you, if you feel a heaviness in your chest lighten even a little, or a part of you understands that you are not as late as you once thought, I want you to take 1 second to like this video, not to help the algorithm, but to acknowledge within yourself that a new layer of awareness has just opened. A small gesture like that can be the anchor, helping you hold the frequency you just stepped into. The recognition point is not the end, it is the opening. And once you have seen it, you will never look at life in the old way again, because now you know something that you once only heard from others. You are never late. You are simply arriving at the moment you were prepared to receive. The collapse of the old self is not a sudden event, nor is it a disaster that falls upon you to test you. It is the natural consequence that occurs when a new frequency begins to open. No being can step into a new layer of awareness while keeping their old structure intact. Every layer of reality requires a corresponding version of a person to exist within it. When your frequency changes, the old part has no choice but to fall away. It does not fall because you failed. It falls because you have outgrown it. Your old version was built from the beliefs you once used to survive, from the fears you once believed were real, from the limits you carried to protect yourself from pain. It was once useful, once necessary, once protective. But when you reach a deeper layer of reality, those old layers no longer fit. They cannot follow you into the new space because they were created from a lower frequency. When you step into a new frequency, the collapse is not something you decide. It is something that unfolds on its own. You cannot stop it. You can only learn to recognize it and not fear it. Because this collapse is not aimed at you, it is simply removing the parts that no longer match you. When the old identity begins to loosen, you will feel a kind of emptiness that is difficult to describe. No longer feeling aligned with what was once familiar. No longer feeling excited by what once stimulated you. No longer feeling at home in the old patterns. This feeling is not a loss of direction. It is the space between two versions, where the old is dissolving and the new is forming. Humans often fear this space because it has no clear structure, but the space itself is the sign that you are opening into a new frequency. The old self always craves control. It wants to keep everything the same because it believes change equals danger. It hates ambiguity, hates phases without answers, hates not being able to predict the future. But when the new frequency appears, those structures of control become useless. You begin to realize that you cannot rely on the old logic to exist in the new layer. You must learn to sense reality from a deeper layer. And the moment you begin living from this deeper layer, the old part contracts instantly because it does not know how to operate in the new environment. That contraction sometimes shows up as fatigue, sadness, confusion, or the feeling that you are losing yourself. But in truth, you are not losing yourself. You are losing the old version so you can become the truer one. During this process, you will witness things that once were central to your life suddenly becoming distant. A relationship that once consumed your emotions no longer holds the same energy. A goal that once burned inside you no longer motivates you. A fear that once felt powerful suddenly becomes meaningless. This is not inconsistency. It is the old energy dissolving. When the old structure dissolves, you begin to see clearly what was once hidden. Behaviors that used to repeat unconsciously become obvious. Habits you thought were impossible to break become light as if they never belonged to you. Limits you believed were real become fragile. This is the natural release of frequency. When frequency rises, lower structures automatically cannot stand. You do not need to break them, they are already falling. The collapse of the old self also comes with the emergence of a new layer of awareness you have never touched before. During this phase, you begin to sense reality differently, no longer seeing it with ordinary eyes, but with a kind of subtle perception. You notice things you were never still enough to perceive before. You feel as if everything is being rearranged, not from the outside, but from within. This is why many people entering a frequency shift feel as though their life is being flipped upside down, but nothing is actually upside down. Only the old parts are being removed, so the new parts have space to exist. There is a moment in this process when you feel as if you are standing between two worlds. One side is what you once understood, once held, once depended on. The other side is what you have not fully grasped yet but feel calling you. This moment between the two layers is the threshold. If you cling to the old, you will feel everything become unbearably heavy. But if you allow yourself to move into the new, you will feel a lightness, as if you have stepped out of armor that has grown too tight. This collapse is not an ending. It is a separation. It separates the parts that no longer fit so you can step into a wider space. An old identity cannot contain a new frequency. Just as a small cup cannot hold an ocean, when you become deeper, the old cup must break. When you become larger, the old structure must collapse. When you become a version capable of seeing farther, the old layers of fog must fall away. And when all of this happens, you realize that the collapse does not weaken you, it expands you. It does not bring you back to zero, it brings you to the layer you were always meant to reach. The collapse of the old self is the confirmation that you have entered a new frequency, and once you are in, you cannot return, because the door has opened, because you have seen, because the true version of you has begun to appear. And when the true self begins to rise, everything old becomes nothing more than dust you leave behind.